G'day everyone. This is Rangadad, not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. I hope those that watch this haven't panicked yet at the sign of this candle. Pretty well doing what we said it would do yesterday. Probably would have liked to have seen it just come down slightly more into that point of control, but still a little bit left in this candle. 5.5 hours. I'm a little bit earlier than normal today. But yeah, on the daily, BBWP is still sticking to the upside, and it's actually continuing above the signal line. Stochastic momentum still to the upside. This so far has been a pretty healthy retrace back into some key levels, which, I mean, that 20 moving average there, I think it is 20 I've got. Oh, the 5, sorry. The 5 will move up into that wick if it closes a positive candle, but either way, we still could have sort of a bit of a quiet and down kind of weekend as well. But at this stage, still bullish. Higher time frames still look pretty good. Obviously, it is a rejection of this downward channel. That was a pretty good level too. Supposedly there is a upward sloping channel out of all this as well, which I can kind of see, but at this stage, I'm happy enough with what we've got on the charts here. So yeah, same levels as yesterday, really. I think there is still a chance we could, over the next day or so, get down into that 96.6. Like a full retest of that before we go higher. But at the moment, a breakout and a retest of the value area high is also quite powerful to the upside. So there seems to be a fair bit of buying pressure still. Lots of wicks to the downside. You know, it's looking okay. There is some signs here that we may actually come back down, potentially to pick up this candle, this vector candle here, maybe even back down into this one on the 15-minute. But looking at shorter time frames, it may not as well. A little bit hit and miss at this stage. And most of the vector candle down here on the 5-minute have been pretty well recovered. So kind of need to see what it does around the 50. If it breaks some of the key moving averages that we got here, so the 50 on the 15-minute, I think it's going to be pretty important. At the moment, we're bouncing off the 20. Sorry, that's a 13, I think. So check that. Yeah, that's a 13. So we're bouncing off the 13, but I do have a pretty decent reversal signal on the 5-minute, which hasn't been negated yet. Even through this little area that looks like it could try and turn around. At the moment, momentum, I would say, is still to the downside on the shorter time frame. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You may get a slightly better price over the next couple of days than where we're at right now. But in general, higher time frames are still very much bullish at the moment. There are a couple of wicks up here on the 15-minute as well. So yeah, just think it might be a little choppy, but it should resolve itself within the next couple of days, hopefully with a decent break out of that downward channel there. That's the key one at the moment. That's guiding price, and it's a pretty strong one. Again, you want to be looking at this trend line here too. So a break of this trend line to the downside, which is potentially crossing the middle of this channel in pretty close quarters. That's a price of 94,792, and that's actually very close to the value area low as well. So we could actually get price move back into that 94,792 sort of area, 94.5. So which has been a key level to break above as well. So it would make sense to come down into there. Just looking at 15-minute time frame, there is 94,800. There is a vector candle there that hasn't really been fully recovered, not even sort of 50% recovered. These are a little concerning. On the 15-minute, there is a couple of decent vector candles between 92 and 93.3. They would probably be of more concern, but then if we're getting down into those levels, you're breaking the mid band of that channel, you're breaking that downward trend line, so you're probably looking at recovering this wick here as well. So I would suggest that short-term targets in here around that 97,500, like back down into these levels, we should find support there. If we don't, and that'll be sitting right around this level here, lots of confluence in there, should be a lot of support there. So if we get to here, I would expect a bounce, and then I would actually expect that to break the top of that channel on that bounce. If we fall through, and with a couple of confirmations on the sort of the 15-minute or even the hourly, then yeah, I'd expect it to come probably back down a little bit lower than that previous week. All right, that's the summary for Bitcoin at the moment. Just looking at it, we had a very strong hourly bounce off the pivot there. Yeah, actually, that's quite strong. Keep in mind there. I don't know why this downward channel looks so different compared to the other one on the daily. Trading view has been weird lately. Anyway, sort of breaking back below this pivot. Not getting a lot off the pivots here. It can be good to confirm bounce points if you're looking at other confluence factors. But at this stage, that looks like actually a lower high there. If we confirm to the downside, if it bounces from here and keeps going to the upside, then it's probably going to go straight to 104 at least. I suspect probably a little bit higher coming into that trend line there. But we are sort of starting to make our way down on cyclic RSI as well. So we could get a bit more of a spike. That's well and truly possible before coming back down further. But at this stage, shorter time frames than the hourly, still postured to the downside. So BTC longs have still been building as well, only slightly, but positive signs that they are building. Fact we haven't got more in the system yet suggests it may actually come back further than that major support that I just outlined. It's probably going to depend a lot on what the US stock market does. So have a quick look at liquidity. So some decent liquidity sweeps here. This is potentially a target if we do see it fall through. So 98,373 I'm looking at as a pretty decent target. For it to come back down into that 97K zone, there's not a lot there to go to at the moment. So just bear that in mind. We also didn't quite grab all the liquidity up here as well. So that's probably going to be pretty attractive to price. And so it really just depends how low this is going to come before going up. At the moment, in my eyes, I would expect a bounce somewhere in this region and then back up into the 101s. Doesn't have to happen. We've left plenty of liquidity behind before on drops. The drops bring more liquidity into the system. So actually, what did I say that was? Sorry, I'll make sure I'm giving you the right numbers. 94,792. So that's potentially got a lot more liquidity down there. If we zoom out, 95 to, so the 94.7 area would actually grab a lot of this liquidity in here. So that's, I guess there's a bit of confluence there to say, okay, there's more shorter term liquidity in that area. We look at, let's just go out, see if I can grab some of the, yeah. So looking at it on this chart, there is still a lot above. So liquidity is probably fairly balanced at the moment. Let's go to the liquidation map. So the 1 day is pretty balanced. 7 day, there is actually quite a bit of long liquidity, down to 92, but yeah, 94.7 would actually pick up a pretty major amount, in the order of 3.3 billion. Which would balance it out a reasonable amount. I would be concerned though that we'd be going further and grabbing most of this down to 92. 92 would freak a lot of people out. So interesting level to bounce, but we'll just have to wait and see. As we know, what happens once you start sliding into these numbers, people keep putting longs, trying to pick the bottom, and so this will actually grow at the same time. So you can slide further than these numbers. All right. Not a lot above, according to this, on the 7 day. So that 101, 102 level is probably going to be pretty important. Out to the 30 day, you got 103. 104 would pick up most of it on the 30 day. 105 even. Then you come back right back down into that 80, 89, 88 level. So it's starting to build to the downside. Yeah, a little bit overweight to the downside. So kind of, yeah, balanced, I would say, at the moment. No real driver in either direction. Have a look at, so CBD dropping with price at the moment. Nothing really untoward there. A little bit of buying as we're coming down here, but not a hell of a lot. Not compared to some of these other dips that we've had. So that's probably suggesting a little bit further to the downside as well. Saying that, just came in a little bit. Yeah, nothing really to change my mind there. Looking at the heat map, liquidation heat map from Binance here on CoinAnk, it is actually showing that there's probably more in the close vicinity to the upside than there is to the downside, but at the moment it looks like it's just mowing through what we've got here. It could quite easily actually come down into that 96 level. Once it starts mowing through this, from what I've seen, and don't take this as gospel, but it does tend to like to get rid of all the 100x leverage, so the orange stuff. Doesn't worry too much about the blue and the light blue. That would suggest somewhere around the 96.6. Should probably pretty close to the 50 on that. Sorry, the 200 on the hourly. For the time being, the 200 on the 15-minute. Excuse me, is sitting at 98.250. That's actually right at the bottom of that vector candle as well on 15 minutes. So 98.262. So look, at this stage, it seems like it wants to come down into that area. Pretty good continuation signs to the downside there. Not going to tell you exactly what I'm looking at there. I think I might have discovered something that could be quite powerful for the bots, so don't actually want to give that away yet. But yeah, this at the moment looks like continuation to the downside. All right, so quick look at the volume leaders. Utilities, interesting. Utilities got a sweep, dark pool sweep, and it's actually gone higher from there today. Typically, a sweep is someone wanting to get in quickly or out quickly, given that it's the 12th largest trade in history, I believe. It's suggesting that utilities might actually be going to the upside. Quite often that's a defensive sector, but just going to have a look. Just going to have a look over the last, yeah, okay. Yeah, could be bouncing here. All right. The only reason I brought that up was it made the top 5 in a few categories today. IBIT, yeah, we didn't see any massive opening trade today. We haven't seen anything huge yet, but typically the last month or so, I've been noticing that the big trades only come in at the start or at the finish. That to me is suggesting that someone was selling IBIT, 6th largest trade ever on that one. So that's fact we haven't really broken too much higher than these levels suggests that it may actually be a topping signal. Which is something we got to consider as well. So, Coinbase, decent trade there, the 47th largest. I wouldn't say we got any particular read on whether that was a take profit or a buy, to be honest, but probably a take profit, I think. And the 2x long fund, these are probably buys. We haven't really seen any exits yet on that. Let's look at today's session. Someone bought the dip today. They haven't sold yet. By the look at that, no major sellers at the highs yet. So, few people taking profit by the look of it on Coinbase though. That one definitely looks like a take profit. So yeah, not a huge read either way, but the good news is it's not really signaling that there's a major high in. Slight tick up on sentiment trader for smart money, but smart money and dumb money are both sitting at the same level at the moment. Dumb money's coming back into the charts in a decent amount by the look of it, which isn't ideal. You kind of want them to still be selling out, but the fact smart money's had a little uptick at the same time, it's not a bad sign that we're potentially going to break out of the downward channel that we got for S&P 500 as well. So have a look at the Qs. False break so far of that particular channel, and it completely depends where you draw that trend line. Trend lines are just guides. The actual futures of trend lines probably a more decent one. Actually draw that there. Anyway, somewhere around there. We have recovered most of the vectors on this as well. So again, I'm still expecting this to generally move to the upside at some stage soon. No breakout on the NASDAQ. So technology seems to be struggling compared to a lot of other sectors. We are still bullish on this based on this chart. Momentum is still breaking to the upside. BBWP would be good if it would go with it, but for the time being, you still got bullish divergence on the equal weights. S&P 500 volume isn't massive today. It's looking okay, but again, I'd probably expect it to come in, close this gap, and then move to the upside, bounce off this longer term trend line. I think that's probably a more likely scenario to break through, especially in this environment. Quite often, if you're in a very bullish environment, it will just keep going from there. But yeah, I'd like to see it put in a higher low somewhere in here and then move to the upside. Yeah, it's a pretty good chance to do that. I mean, it's pulling back and testing the 50 EMA, 200, stuff like that. That's well and truly possible. But it'll depend a lot on earnings season. And like JP Morgan apparently smashed their earnings. So if banks are doing well, typically that's not a major sign of an issue in the economy. If banks start to have poor results, then I would expect that to be very much a topping signal. Yeah, equal weight, S&P 500 still looking pretty strong. So we may not get a massive pullback on this. If we do, it might be intraday, and then a move to the upside. IWM still in this region. We want to see it break that key level. XLI is doing okay. That's a decent sign. Ooh, excuse me. XLY, XLP, not a great candle today. Bit of a bounce on XLP versus SPY as well. We're going to start getting worried about the economy once we start seeing trend line breaks. Going to put that on there and we'll see what happens. Equal weight, XLY, XLP is still moving up. Yeah, equal weight, XLY, S&P 500 is still very much in a downtrend. KRE, bit of a rejection off that trend line is not ideal. It has left a nice big vector at the top here though, so may just be a little pullback after a pretty decent couple of days. ITB, again, same sort of deal. Still looking like it has found a base. Same with home builders. Semis, I mean, that's not looking terrible. It's pretty high level for it to be momentum to be breaking to the upside, and bit of hidden bullish divergence on momentum as well, with BBWP breaking to the upside. So that's reasonably bullish on the semis chart at the moment. As I said yesterday, it should at least come up in and recover most of this vector candle. But looking at this setup, it may actually try and break to new highs. DJR Gold's come back a little bit again. Same with DJT Gold. Not a huge issue at the moment. VIX is almost reset. Looks like it wants to make a lower low here as well, which a lower low here. VIX is hard to read like that, but it would suggest we've broken this this upward sort of trend on the lows, which was governing that downward slide. The skew yesterday was down, and down quite a bit. So we want to wait and see what happens today. If today's skew is still down and following that same sort of trajectory, then I would actually look at the S&P 500 is probably following this path, so pull back into that key trend line and then a bounce. One-day VIX, we have broken that particular trend line, which again suggests we'll probably break out of current downtrend. Kind of want to see this continue to the downside a little bit, but we'll see. Excuse me. If this does bounce back up for a couple of days, make a lower high, that would probably be putting in a higher low on the S&P 500. DAX is still going. DAX is really keen to break this upper trend line by the look of it, but not the best candle there. It's leaving behind a vector. Yeah, need to see a couple of closes above that trend line to suggest much movement. Chinese market, as we pointed out a couple of days ago, pretty decent bounce on decent momentum, but BBWP is not great. But for the time being, that's got the chance to break the 200 EMA and the 50. It's just not looking particularly strong until you break some of these levels. Japanese market dropping. UK market going strong. BBWP is increasing. Looks like it wants to close above that high there. There was a vector candle here, so I'd potentially go a little bit higher than that. But this setup would be conducive to actually a breakout of this level. Now, what that could actually be, and it may not be, this may be a bullish accumulation. It could be a bull flag, this whole region here that we've been in since May last year, so 6 months. If we do break and sort of confirm to the upside, and I would be suggesting you'd be looking at confirmations. So a break of that level, retest, and then another move away and closure above the high of the break. That would actually suggest the UK market's going to go on a bit of a run. What we don't want to see is a breakout and a failure of that retest. Because a failure of the retest is going to suggest that this is actually a Wyckoff distribution. And that could be I think it's called the UTAD, whatever. It's basically a fake out the upside. And then potentially that'll break these levels down around the bottom here. And that would probably be a pretty decent signal that the global economy is not looking super healthy. TLT's bouncing. That's a pretty decent bounce too. Bit of follow through on that. So bonds are actually suggesting that the market's okay to keep moving to the upside. Little bit of a rejection on this one. So that may see us pull back a little bit further in the market. But again, there's plenty of support around this area. Even back into this region, there's plenty of support to suggest that will be a good base. So again, still could be a choppy couple of days, flat to down, and then we move to the upside. 2-year and the 10-year. The 2-year is still in that channel. 10-year certainly hasn't broken any major. I mean, the closure below 46.29, that should have been a pretty decent support level, and it looks like it's going to break straight through it. The next level of support is going to be somewhere around 450, I would suggest. But what I'm looking at here is this trend line. Should draw it for that. So a break below this trend line here. So could easily come back into that 4.5%. A break below that would actually potentially be leading to a pretty decent run on stocks, which again, I think we're getting close to the final run, blow off top kind of on US stocks soon. But yeah, this is a very bearish sign for the US 10-year yields, which is good for market. Chinese yields are going up as well, still trending to the upside. Copper. Copper seems to be just unstoppable at the moment. Um, Even if you put that trend line through there, it's looking pretty strong. And again, that's suggesting that markets should actually continue the upside probably sooner rather than later. We may not get that full pullback that I was talking about. Sorry, I'm just looking at something. There's a copy trade close that I'm going to potentially close out soon. Gold, decent breakout here. Key resistance at the key resistance level. I would expect this to break potentially even today. Closure above that would suggest further upside, but as it is, BBWP's increasing. We're definitely in bullish control zone here. That was a pretty good retest and move to the upside. Much more to say about it than that, really. Silver's moving, but not as much. Probably got a bit further to go if it does get some interest, though. I want to see it break out of this little consolidation versus gold. And it looks like it's trying to do that at the moment in terms of momentum and BBWP. US oils finally had a little bit of a pullback straight into this key level. It's interesting that we've broken, like, if we close below this trend line, we could actually come back into these areas in here, which this would be a pretty decent target around next Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, depending on where you are in the world. But I would expect that to actually bounce from there. Just a lot of volume, pretty decent volume area. As it is at the moment, this is not a bad volume area as well over the last, what's that, 6-7 months? 6 months, sorry. But yeah, I got a sneaking suspicion it might actually close above that trend line and keep going to the upside. Dixie finding a little bit of support here on this trend line. It looks like it should break below that, though, just based off momentum. Global liquidity, good move to the upside. We want to see this continuing to the upside. This stage, it looks like it will. So that's a good sign for markets to keep going up as well. Percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average is still climbing as well. So that's, again, showing a bit of breadth in the market, which is handy, especially since the Mag 7 seem to be finding a bit of resistance. Again, don't necessarily have to come all the way back down into here, but it looks like the market does want to have a little bit of a rest before moving higher. Just probably to take out some of the people that are going long at the moment. Yeah, nothing really. Like, at the moment, I wouldn't see this as confirmation that we're going to see this move from Tesla. especially the general market close to the upside. Tesla's earnings are going to be a pretty critical point for markets, though. Again, Nvidia's slowly starting to come up. Momentum hasn't really confirmed to the upside yet, but given we got this big red vector candle up here, I'd kind of expect it to be heading towards that. Yeah, most of the tech stocks are actually just flat. Most of the big guys are flat. Apple, that's going to be a pretty decent level for Apple to bounce. If Apple can bounce here or in the next couple of days, then it would actually be putting in a bit of bullish divergence on stochastic momentum and a swing, like a turnaround with high BBWP. Typically, we'll actually see a pretty decent bounce in the opposite direction. So that's best case for Apple at the moment. Break below this trend line, and it's probably coming back down to somewhere around 193 to 200. I don't see it really stopping before that. Obviously, there's probably going to be bounces at some of these key support levels, but ultimately, I think breaking this trend line to the downside would actually be quite bad for Apple. Not seeing any reasons as to why it would pull up earlier than that. And if we look at that trend line and just play out a general sort of move to the downside here, you're sort of looking in those sort of regions there. So that's certainly, if that plays out for Apple, then I would actually expect the markets to be coming down. But that's a pretty quick drop on Apple as well. Typically, fast moves like that don't necessarily follow through. If you're a bear on Apple, you probably actually would prefer to see it come back up and then move to the downside. Just going to leave that in there because I actually think that may play out. Just a hunch. Aussie market could be a bit of a dead cat bounce here, actually. It needs to break with a bit more conviction, I would suggest. It is above sort of that trend line. Interesting to see how that plays out. Momentum's the upside, so give it the benefit of the doubt for the time being. Total crypto market cap is a bit flat. Good bounce there off that trend line. People are still trying to long Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Bitcoin shorts are coming down. That's actually not a great sign for that short that's open in the copy trader. Bitcoin dominance coming down. I actually think we might put in a higher low here. Ethereum's still looking okay to the upside, similar to Bitcoin. This is a little pullback. I'd expect Ethereum to at least get up to this sort of area, back to the top of that downward trend line we had from way back. But you'd expect it to probably come back up to the value area high as well. Oh, wow. CME's back up around 100K. Still nearly 3 hours left on CME. I mean, that's looking like it wants to just break through. Doesn't look like it wants much more of a pullback than what we've already had today. Seems to be a lot of buying pressure at the moment, which is good, like great thing for crypto leading into the next couple of months, which is when we did expect the last leg of the bull run to actually happen. So happy days. XRP has been the star performer out of all this. Yeah, I'd be waiting for XRP to break back below this bullish control zone before really calling a top on it. Good momentum to the upside, good BBWP. Looks like it's got more in it. Hard one to read in terms of how high this would go, because I don't think you could really take that as your flagpole. That would suggest $11. I very highly doubt that is where it will go to. Could be wrong, but I would actually probably use that as my flagpole. So that would still get us to $4. So $4 on XRP is probably going to be a pretty decent target. All right. That'll do for today, I think. So for the time being, that is it for me. Bitcoin a little choppy, but it looks like it's going to break out reasonably soon. What we don't want to see is it really breaking that, what was it? Leave you with the key level there. Don't really want to see it breaking the 94,400 level with any sort of conviction. All right, catch us later.